You know it, and you hate it. The CRJ200. This is the most hated airplane in the world. But why? It's a tiny plane with even tinier seats meant for short flights. But today, we're going to fly all the way across the United States on these planes to find out what makes them so bad and share some tips about how to survive your next CRJ flight along the way.
Hello, jet setters. I'm Jeb Brooks from greenergrass.com, and today we're flying the world's most hated plane all the way across the United States. Let's get checked in and get this multi-leg journey started.
What have I gotten myself into?
There's good reason for Suzanne's concern. Small, 50-seat regional jets are designed for short flights, but our cross-country itinerary will take 14 hours to get from here on the East Coast out to the West Coast.
All right, our first leg of the day is from here at our home airport of Greensboro, North Carolina, up to Chicago O'Hare. This is an early morning departure for a CRJ200. Let's hope it's warm enough to start. I'm kidding. The real question is, how many legs do you think it's going to take? How many flights will it take us today to get all the way to California? Pause the video, leave a comment below, and let me know.
There's no room for carry-on bags like these on the plane, so you gotta put this on there and drop it off plane side.
Pro tip on your gate tag bags, take a picture of the tag so you have it in case it gets lost.
Also, despite this ad, I don't think there'll be any Wi-Fi in this plane.
We just got an announcement over at the gate that the coffee maker's broken, which is tough on a flight that departs at 6 in the morning.
So, with a cup of coffee from the airport Starbucks in hand, we boarded and dropped our green tag bags at the end of the jet bridge. Here you have it, the unremarkable and well-loathed CRJ200 cabin. It's cramped, dark, and pretty basic. But it's also perfect for the job it's usually assigned. Short, thin routes. Short, meaning they're not very long, and thin, meaning there's not much demand for them. Now, we'd chosen to book seats toward the back of the cabin and had no problem finding space for our backpacks up top. Now, although smaller carry-ons might fit under the seat in front of you, you're going to lose what little leg room you have unless they're extremely small.
This is the level of my eye, and this is the window. So if you want to look out the window, you gotta... We're back here in row 12, which means the bathroom is just right there.
Lovely way to start the morning.
It's convenient.
You know, on a lot of planes they talk about leg room. On this plane, let's talk about shoulder room. Wow.
It's a little tight.
You better know who you're sitting next to.
I'm lucky I do. Scored a bit of a win. The flight is not full, so the row across from us is empty, and Suzanne grabbed a seat there. So I got a little bit more room now. I don't think that's going to be true on all the legs, though.
It's going to be wheels up, wheels down, hour and 45 minutes. Thank you for flying with us. We're going forward.
Thanks in part to the CRJ's small size, boarding was pretty quick and we pushed back right on time. But then, we found out we needed to de-ice. This important safety procedure slows down many flights, especially in winter, but thankfully most airlines, including regionals like this one, pad their schedules to account for this process during wintertime. The cabin was dark, but thankfully the CRJ has reading lights. We made our way out to the runway and were in the sky, beginning this 589-mile journey. But it was only the first step we'll be taking today. Just as I'd thought, few, if any, of these 50-seat regional jets offer Wi-Fi on board. It's not a surprise given the relatively short hops they make, but still a little disappointing.
These airplanes also have tiny bathrooms.
I was grateful to have 2 tray tables to myself, the coffee I'd bought in the terminal, and a fully charged Kindle.
Beginning our descent down into Chicago, so first leg is nearly done, got about 30 minutes left in flight. This was a comfortable flight because of the extra space thanks to the empty row, but the other flights look, well, a lot more full. Welcome to Chicago. Next stop, Lincoln, Nebraska. But first, got to grab those bags in the jet bridge.
This is about the only upgrade you're going to get on this plane. There's no first class or economy plus.
She's right, which is one of the reasons United created the CRJ550. It's a larger plane with 50 seats, even includes a first-class cabin though. I'll link to the video I made about that plane in the description. We pulled into the gate and got off, but
then you gotta wait for your bag.
Our itinerary today is nothing but United Airlines. Suzanne does all the booking, so why is that?
Well, first of all, United's the best, and second of all, United flies more single-class 50-seat airplanes than Delta and American combined. So it's a lot easier to find flights with them and a lot more options.
Wow, that's crazy. I didn't know that. I know that a lot of airlines are disavowing themselves of these airplanes.
And it's easy to see why. Passengers hate them. They don't have plugs or Wi-Fi, the windows are too low, the overhead bins can't accommodate rollaboard bags, there's barely any headroom, the lavatories are tiny, there's no first class or even economy plus. The seats are incredibly small, and if the plane isn't full, people in the front may have to move to the back to ensure proper weight and balance. In short, these airplanes are pretty easy to hate. So let's get back on board. It's time to go to Lincoln, Nebraska. You've heard us say the seats are small, and you've even seen them with your own eyes. But let's take a closer look.
Well, this may be a 20-year-old CRJ200, but the interior's been refreshed. This is pretty nice.
Sure, it looks good, but let's get into the weeds.
Let's look at the CRJ200 by the numbers.
The shoulder width is a mere 12 inches. My shoulders are way wider than that. The seats, they're only 17.5 inches wide. And the pitch, that's the distance from a point on a seat to the same point on the seat behind it. It's hard to measure, but it comes in at only 29 inches. I'm 5 feet 11 inches tall and enjoyed 3.5 inches of knee room, while Suzanne, 5'3", had a whopping 6.5. To make this tiny space a bit more comfortable, I put my backpack in the overhead bin and keep my essentials in this smaller bag. Oh, and a couple of passengers had to move to the back of the plane so we were balanced for this flight.
Should be a nice 1 hour and 15-minute flight at 32,000 feet over to Lincoln. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the flight. Thanks.
As of the publication of this video, United has 187 CRJ200s. American doesn't currently operate them, but is getting 40 from Air Wisconsin. And Delta claims they'll phase out their 60 by summer 2023. We'll see. This second leg of our cross-country adventure will cover 466 miles. You wouldn't expect seatback entertainment on board, so we settled in for this leg with iPads. The FAA requires one flight attendant for every 50 seats on a plane, so that means CRJ200s have one on board, and she offered beverages and snacks as she passed through the cabin. Time flies when you're having fun. Welcome to the capital of the state of Nebraska. This is Lincoln. Hopped off the plane and waited for the bags again. But would you believe it? Mine was the second one to get offloaded.
Welcome to Lincoln, Nebraska. This is our first time visiting, and Lincoln is not built to be a connection airport, so we've got 3 hours here. We thought we'd go into town and explore the city just a little bit, at least get a snapshot of it. So we're going to go grab an Uber and figure out what's going on in Lincoln. And this really illustrates the power of the regional jet. I mean, thanks to these kinds of airplanes, we're able to connect to places we wouldn't otherwise. And it connects these smaller cities and communities to larger ones all over the world. Really opens up the world, communities like Lincoln or Greensboro. We've got time for lunch at Billy's. Let's check it out.
Of course, we looked a little strange with our luggage, but Suzanne's research had identified Billy's as a place where Nebraska's movers and shakers had lunch, so we couldn't pass up the chance to try it. We toasted a couple of pints of the local craft brew and dug into some sandwiches. I had the cranberry turkey, and Suzanne had the burger. We were both happy campers. It was more food than you'll get on any regional jet, or frankly, even at the lunch counter back at the airport.
What do you think of Lincoln?
It's a little cold in Lincoln, but very lovely. Glad we got to check it out.
Lincoln's airport is undergoing a renovation, but I really liked it.
They even have free coffee.
Surely we're two of the only people to connect through Lincoln, Nebraska, but we had a mission to accomplish.
Back where we started, so let's head through security and get back on board. The star of the show today is without a doubt the CRJ200, but we've got a guest star in this segment. It's the ERJ145, the cousin of the CRJ, maybe the sister from a Brazilian mister. I don't know. But we're going to be trying out this ERJ145 in this next leg. This is in some ways a better airplane, arguably, than the CRJ, but let's get on board and figure it out for ourselves.
As much fun as I was having looking at this ERJ, something even more exciting was happening on the other side of the airport. The nearly 13,000-foot runway was playing host to this unique 747, an E-4B doing touch and goes.
How cool is that? You don't see that every day. This is one of the great things about aviation. There's so many different aspects to it.
And speaking of aviation, let's turn our attention to the pilots.
One thing I've heard consistently from pilots of these regional planes is just how fun they are to fly. So they've got that going for them. I think they might be a little more comfortable in the cockpit than they are back in the passenger cabin.
No plugs on board, so gotta juice up here.
It's time to leave Lincoln behind and make our way over to Denver.
Right back on through the same jet bridge.
As a passenger, the ERJ-145's chief advantage over the CRJ200 is its narrower cabin. That means only 3 seats across, and if you're a solo traveler, that side with only 1 seat is a real catch. As a couple, though, we booked the seats on the 2 side.
Such a better window than the CRJ.
That said, it's just as cramped and tiny as the CRJ200.
286 service to Denver. Got an hour and 7-minute flight today once you get off the ground, cruising at 24,000 feet. Sit back, relax, enjoy the flight. Thanks for flying with us.
Denver is a mere 423 miles away. This is our shortest flight yet. But I was starting to drag a bit and thought some coffee would help. When I asked, though, I received a disappointing response.
No coffee on board?
Oh well. Sometimes regional carriers simply don't offer the same consistent and robust service of their mainline partners, and that's an important note. Despite what the paint says on the outside of these planes, these regional flights are not operated by the airlines they represent, but rather by contracted carriers. So far today, even though it seems like we've only flown with United, we've actually flown with Air Wisconsin, SkyWest, and now this flight is on Commute Air. When you're booking flights, pay attention to the aircraft type to be sure you know what you're getting yourself into. Take this trip from Greensboro to Las Vegas. It looks like I'm booking first class, but don't miss the mixed cabin note. The first leg to Chicago is on a CRJ200. But as for us, we touched down in Denver right on time.
And would you believe it? That's our next plane. The gate right next door.
We experienced a common occurrence for regional flying here. I was waiting for bags outside. Depending on what's going on in the time of year, this can be either amazing or a bit rough.
At least the weather's pretty good while we wait for the bags out here. Well, we'll be back out here in just a minute because, again, that plane next door is our next flight.
Welcome to Denver. Now, the first question, Suzanne, which do you prefer, the ERJ-145 or the CRJ200?
You know, this might kind of surprise you, and it kind of surprises me, but I would say the CRJ. It's like a little bit more spacious.
I couldn't agree more. And the good news is our next flight is also on a CRJ200.
Woohoo!
Yes. And I don't know if you're going to be saying that in just a second because it's our longest leg. This is more than 2.5 hours on a CRJ200.
Drop your guesses below. Where could we be going in California that's served by a regional jet from Denver and takes more than 2 hours to reach? I finally found that cup of coffee, and boy, I needed it. We were back outside, dropping off our bags one last time, and getting on our final airplane of the day.
And look, there's a plane that brought us from Lincoln. How weird is that?
Flight time's going to run a little bit longer than normal, about 2 hours and 10 minutes at altitude 32,000 feet. Thank you, Flight United Express today.
We began this 844-mile flight to one of California's smaller cities. This will be the longest and, thankfully, the last flight of the day. And with a route that will take us directly over the snow-covered Rocky Mountains, it also promises to be the most beautiful. As airlines move away from these smaller 50-seaters, what's the future of this kind of flying? Well, only time is really going to tell. Both American Airlines and United have replaced some routes with bus services already. I'm sure there'll be more of that. But I also believe airlines will decrease frequencies into smaller markets in order to fill larger jets in lieu of offering more service. What do you think the future holds for this kind of flying, though? Let us know in the comments below.
Just beginning our approach. Next stop, just out here, California.
Now, we do not recommend you book a trip across the country on regional jets, but we do think they're more important than we sometimes give them credit for. By connecting smaller communities to larger hub airports like Chicago and Denver, they really open up the world. In fact, without these jets, Lincoln's airport might not even have service, which would make it harder to visit. If you find yourself on board one of these jets, here are our top tips. First, pack your essentials in a smaller bag like I did so you could put your larger one in the overhead bin. Be sure your devices are fully charged and bring your own entertainment to pass the time. Oh, and if you're prone to getting hungry, don't forget to pack a snack.
Well, allow me to be the first person to welcome you to Fresno, California. That's right, we made it. We just flew across the country in the tiniest seats we possibly could. Can you believe we made it?
Oh my gosh, 14 hours after we left Greensboro, we're finally in California. So you booked me a massage, right?
Yeah, between now and the next time.
See you on a regional jet.
Join us to find out why this plane is one of the least liked in the country, the world.
This thing on?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this light is kind of...
Suzanne's bag was mistaken for somebody else's, and she tried to take it, but then we grabbed it. It turned into a whole thing. What do you say?
Yeah, let's...
Do it.
But these planes are... No. Really not going to find much food on board a CRJ, so gotta fuel up, got a long day ahead still.
If you've been around this channel for any period of time, you know that we've made some strange trips. I've done some strange things, but I've got to tell you, flying across the country by CRJs and stopping off for lunch in Lincoln, Nebraska, this could be the strangest thing I've ever done.
How cool is this? It's the giant redwood forest in the airport. Maybe sequoias. I don't know. Anyway, they're the big trees. Pretty cool.